Okay, motocross kind of sucks in some ways. Trail riding is better, and I'm going to tell you why I think that right now. Okay, so I have been known sometimes to say that motocross is better than trail riding, but overall, I think for most people, trail riding is probably better. And there's a lot of benefits to trail riding. One of the things about trail riding is you get to see just an immense amount of different terrain. You get to go up to the mountains at 10,000 feet, get yourself into the snow, get yourself into, kind of tough, scary predicaments, and it's just amazing. You get to go out to the red rocks of Utah, up to the mountains of Colorado, and you get to see just things that you couldn't see if you were just hiking. You would have to hike a lot to see the kind of stuff that we see on trails, whether up in the Sierras, and all these different locations in Utah and Idaho that we go. I've ridden on Hawaii trail riding. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan has some of the just coolest trails I've ever seen in my life. I was out there 20 years ago for a ride, and that UP area in Michigan is just amazing. And their biggest problem is they can't ride all the trails before winter hits. We have the opposite problem out west here. We all get ridden too much sometimes, So with trail riding, I feel like being able to do that. And then the next thing I like about trail riding that we don't have in motocross is the camaraderie. Guys tend to be a lot nicer, especially if you meet up with guys at the trailheads, or you got your buddies that all go together. You have a bit bigger camaraderie. You're taking a trip, a destination to a trail ride place a lot. So we'll go to places like Moab or whatever, and we'll ride for a couple days. We'll meet up with guys there. So with trail riding, also another huge benefit is that you can ride an older machine and not be as big a deal. In motocross, you have to have the latest and greatest. You feel like there's this pressure to have, if you have a 2-year-old bike in motocross, you're kind of looked at as like the poor kid on welfare, right? So in trail riding, you can get into it. You can be riding a $2,000 bike, a $3,000 bike, and no one's gonna be making fun of you. You're just out having fun on the trail. And that's a huge advantage when you're trail riding. You can get into it a lot better than in motocross. So that's a really nice thing that I think's there. So that camaraderie that you get doesn't really mean of course, I trail ride a $10,000 300, right? But and I've gone out with guys, and we've said this in other videos, compared to a guy on a $2,000 or $3,000 bike that we fixed up, a 10-year-old bike, we have just as much fun that day on the trail as the guy with a $10,000 bike versus the $3,000 bike. You have just as much fun. So that's something to keep in mind. And then on the trail trips, we tend to, we go out to dinner, we're staying at a hotel for a night or two, and then even if it's just a day trip, and we all go out together, it's a long 10, 12-hour day a lot of times with our driving. And we have some trips we go to in California. I've taken Rado on some really cool trails up in the desert areas in California. And you end up, hitting dinner on the way home. You're eating some snacks on the trail. Really fun that way. In motocross, one of the big things that I don't like is, even if you're just practicing, we won't get into the racing yet. If you're just a practicer, like which they have a lot of in California and out west here, in other areas they don't have a lot of practice for motocross. There's only races, and they don't tend to have as much practice. In California here, we can practice 5, 6, 7 days a week if we want. So even practicing, I go out on a Wednesday to Kuya or a Thursday to Glen Helen, I'm just in the way a lot of times with the fast guys. And these fast guys, one of the cool things that fast guys like to do to you is they hop on the track right behind you so they can pass you straight away, and then when they land off a jump, they whip right in front of you and then roost it so that you get roosted. They want to make sure you feel that they passed you with their roost hitting you. They don't have to do that. They're going by fast enough. They don't have to roost you as you go by. I've learned a few things, being the vet rider I am. I do pay attention more to guys behind me. I will kind of, when I see guys coming, in the next turn, I'm kind of pulling over. I put my hand out, pointing to my left, hey, go to my left here. And then a lot of times the guys are waving at me, going by. But overall, there's a new generation of, this is my term for them, little pukes. These little pukes coming up on their 65s, 85s, 105s, into 125s, and then on to 250Fs. These little pukes, they don't have any respect for guys that have been riding their whole lives. And so that respect part and this, they are better than everyone else attitude is there. And then these motocrossers have that. I say they're kind of ethically challenged. And when I think of, I watch football a lot. And in football, if a guy intercepts a pass, but he kind of knows it hit the ground. He pretends it didn't hit the ground. And he's like, yeah, I got it. And now with instant replay, they can see he didn't get it. And then motocrossers are a lot like that. They have, the ethics aren't so high, unfortunately. So I noticed that with the kids. And they don't want to help you maybe with a part or something like that. And then as far as racing goes, they don't like their competition too much. And with trail riding, you're riding with friends. And I've met guys at the trail, like a guy from Canada or whoever, they got on trail rides with us, and we're huge friends at the end of a 5-hour trail ride. So that's one really nice thing about the trail riding part. In off-road riding, in trail riding, one of the big things is that you don't have to do in the motocross is you don't have to jump everything. You don't have to do every obstacle. So on trail riding, you'll have guys that will help you. They all want to help you get better, right? They also know they don't want to get you hurt and get you in a tough situation. So usually there's always a way around, right? Or they're gonna help you get up a situation. They're gonna help carry your bike up, or someone's gonna ride your bike up for you. Spencer was our guy, and we have another guy named Joe that would help us, and he'll help get the guys up the section. And then maybe 2 or 3 times later, they're able to get up themselves. So that's really nice. In motocross and supercross, those types of riding, if you're not doing all or most of the jumps on the track, you're really not having a lot of fun. And so you have to go ride a vet track, and then on a vet track, for me, I can feel a little bit like, hey, it's not tough enough, that it's not a tough enough track. So that in trail riding, you have this, like I said, this big camaraderie of guys wanting to help you get better. Vet racers on motocross are a lot better, but they're still, most of them are ex-racers their whole life. So they still have that motocross on the brain, where they tend to only think about themselves, and they want to show that they're the plus 40 novice champion or whatever, and like it means something, right? And that's something that's just kind of funny to me, that I do love riding motocross, don't get me wrong, and especially in California on a Wednesday and Saturday, and when it's hot out especially, there's nothing else, there's no off-road or trail riding I'm gonna do, so I'm gonna go ride the track early in the morning before it's too hot, and I have a good time. And so, but with these racers, even vet racers, it's still, they got to prove how much better they are than everyone else. Another funny thing about motocross is you have to look the part, you have to look fashionable. And so on top of having a no older than 2-year-old bike, you have to wear 1 or 2-year-old gear only. You have to look like you're, just come off the line at Anaheim 1 Supercross. So you have to be wearing the latest helmet. Your off-road riding, guys are mixed matched and wearing whatever. I see guys wearing just regular pants, cargo type pants, as long as they got their main protection on. And they don't care how they look. They want to be more functional, and no one's making fun of them for how they look out on the trail, and they're okay with that. And I think that's great. That's a really cool part of trail riding, is that you can be yourself and not have to feel like you have to go spend $800 to $1,000 more to look the part of a supercross star. Dual sporting, I've done some videos on this. Dual sporting and off-road riding, I'm kind of lumping that into trail riding, and that's the fastest growing area, is dual sporting and adventure bikes. And that's becoming a big area because, again, it goes back to that camaraderie part. Guys can go together and have this adventure type of time together. As far as injuries go, I'm not going to tell you that one is safer than the other, because you can get hurt doing anything on a dirt bike. Don't get me wrong. But overall, motocross injuries can be pretty significant, a lot of times because of speed. Off-road riding, we've all heard, especially in racing, there can be very significant injuries, and we're very aware of that. But as far as regular injuries, I do tend to think that I do get hurt less on the trail than I do on the motocross track. And I'll spend more time on a trail. Trail rides for me are anywhere from 2 hours to be a short trail ride up to 5 or 6 hours as it'd be a long one. I don't do 7, 8 hour trail rides or whatever. So for me, that's kind of my take on it. I think it is a bit safer, but again, I'm not going to say that one is you can get plenty hurt off-road and trail riding. So don't think that you're without that you're too safe out there on the trail. You want to always be cautious of what you're doing, wear all your proper gear, and that's really important. On trail riding, one of the things I love is the exploring part of it. Once I've ridden an area a bunch of times, you can kind of get over it a little bit, just like riding the same motocross track over and over. But if you live in a certain area, you can only ride so many tracks close to your house. Well, on trail riding, those trips become just kind of legendary. They're just really fun, especially if you do it with buddies, or in my case, I was able to do a lot of those trips with my son. Just next level to be able to go on these long trips to Colorado, to Utah, on these big places to go ride adventures and go ride in places that are just amazing. So that, I think, is, to me, just the kind of the next level of adding adventure to your riding. All right, so that's a lot of me babbling about trail riding and motocross and why trail riding is better. But at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer that any riding on two wheels is awesome. There's some days I haven't rode in a while, I'll just hop on my bike and putt around on it in front of my house, and I get my little fix, and I just love that. So if you've grown up or even gotten new to motocross or off-road riding, any type of dirt bike, you just love it. And so anything you do is fun. If you're on the fence, and I find that a lot of guys haven't trail rode, mainly because no one's ever taken them, or they haven't found the spot. They've only gone to tracks because it can be a little bit more convenient and easy to go to a track. Trail riding, you have to go do some research, find out what trails are close to you, find guys to go with, because you don't want to go by yourself, especially as you're learning. You want to be with a group of guys, find some guys to go with that are similar skill set, or it's always nice to go with guys that are a little bit better than you to help you on the trails. So trail riding, dual sport riding, it's a blast. Honestly, any riding you're doing on two wheels is good. Motocross, trail riding, off-road, desert, anything is awesome if you're on a dirt bike.